Hey guys, thanks for watching. Today we're looking at our food forest plans. That's episode 5 coming up next. Right now we've seen that permaculture master plan. Like I said, I'm not going to show you guys any of the guilds right yet. I'm still working on those, but you can at least see the placement of all the trees as well as the pioneer species. And when I refer to the pioneer species, I'm actually talking about, those nitrogen fixers, the gummy berries, the autumn olives, the sea buckthorns, those kind of things that are going to be in there that can help build fertility in the ground and be able to kind of chop and drop every now and then to be able to add mulch and stuff to the food forest floor. So I'd like to say up front before I continue that I'm not going to get into what rootstocks I chose and all that. It's really a lot of information out there, but I can tell you that most of the varieties I have chosen are either dwarf or semi-dwarf trees. I don't think there are any super dwarf trees, but you could actually get rootstocks with those. Let's have a look in depth now at some of those areas, starting with area 1. So in area 1, we have a couple of different apple trees. One was a variety that was already there. It's called Prairie Magic. And Prairie Magic is kind of a funny one. It was hard to find a pollination partner for that, but luckily Honeycrisp actually would work really well there. Those apples do work well here. I've heard of people growing Honeycrisp successfully, and up in that end of the garden is actually really sheltered. So I'm expecting, that it should work well. I have an Empire apple tree up there, and last year was the second year for it, and actually produced, I think, 6 apples, which is pretty good for a second year. The other trees are sea buckthorn. So these are these pioneer species that we're talking about. Sea buckthorn is a nitrogen fixer. So I have 3 varieties up there actually. There are 4 trees in total. Choice Gaia, Sunny, which 2 of those, and Lord. Now, as it happens, these trees need to have a male pollinator. So the male pollinator is Lord, and the females are Choice Gaia and Sunny. And each one of those were chosen based on properties that I felt were kind of good for usage. So Sunny, I know they say is great for making juices and stuff like that out of. So I figured, well, we can try that. Some of them have bigger berries than others and different, I guess, tastes, flavors, and whatnot. So we're just kind of mixing up groups to, I guess, include diversity in the garden. In this area, I plan on putting a plum. It's actually a good area for a plum. So the plum that I've chosen to go here is actually called New York 9. Now, New York 9 is actually a European variety, and that European variety is self-fertile. So luckily, I only need to put one there, and it should produce on its own because of that self-fertility. On top of that, we're putting Haskaps. Haskaps are there are 4 trees, are indigo gem, and Aurora, which is a pollinizer for that one. Now, the Aurora will produce berries, but it's mainly the pollinizer for the indigo gem. All right, so the last type of trees in Area 1 are service berries. And service berries actually are native here, but the trees are not, I guess, the type that you would typically cultivate lots of berries of. They do produce berries, and the berries are pretty tasty, but they're not big and plump, and they're not really like what you would necessarily use for commercial value and wanting to obtain large amounts of yields from. So I needed to pick a tree that I knew wasn't going to grow really big, and luckily there are a couple of varieties. One is Lee 3 and the other one is Lee 8, and they were developed in Canada. And those particular berries actually grow, like I said, really well here, but the trees, these particular ones, actually only grow to kind of 7 or 8 feet tall. And yeah, so they're a good kind of sub canopy tree to something that's a larger tree. So that was the reason for the choice there. Okay, so let's move on to area number two. So area number two is actually relatively sheltered, especially the part that's close to the house. And you know, it gets sheltered from the north wind, which is great. If we think back at that windrows diagram, we see that there's quite a bit of north and northwest wind, especially in the springtime and the winter. So I've opted for a plum cut in this area, as well as a Japanese plum, and they are actually compatible. I think both of those trees are semi-fertile, but they actually work really well together in terms of cross-pollination for better yields. So that's the plan there. Now, I'm also planning on adding 2 beaked hazelnuts in that area, one by each tree. And each one of these, I guess, trios of trees or duos of trees are going to be accompanied by a gummy tree, which you know, is a nitrogen fixer, and it can be chopped and dropped and help with fertility. So at the front towards the road, it's actually fairly windy out there, but there are some small evergreens actually growing in that particular area. And the plan is to let them grow as kind of a living windbreak. And in combination with that, I'm planning on planting kind of a duo or trio of trees. The main duo are going to be a locust. It's actually a thornless yellow something or other. It looks like it's going to be a good tree for chop and drop. It's quite prolific, and you know, it's just chopping and dropping it to build fertility for the Chinese American hybrid chestnut that's actually going to go in that area, which will grow fairly big and create quite a canopy. So I'm also planting along with that a sea buckthorn, which is a titan, and crimson passion cherry and a gummy berry, and those are going to build quite a bit of fertility in that area for the chestnut, as well as the dwarf cherry variety called crimson passion. Okay, let's move on to section number three. Section number three is, well, it's fairly small. We're creating a live windbreak at the front using black spruce, and those have already been planted. Luckily, they were already there. I just had to kind of, you know, choke out the grass around it with mulch, and that's already been done with the mulch that I acquired back in September. Now, the chestnut that's there in that area is, well, it's a Chinese American hybrid, and that will act as a pollinizer for the one in area two. So the plan is that, you know, they'll help pollinate each other, and those trees are pretty big, and the root systems are going to get pretty big. So my plan is to pair up a couple of sea buckthorns in that area. All right, so area number four is actually fairly extensive. I'm thinking there's an area there. It's about maybe 100 linear feet or more from the beginning to the end. At least that's, I think, what I measured last fall. So in area four, there's quite a bit going on. We got a couple of apple trees. Those would be a cur crab apple and a freedom apple. And freedom's a fairly disease-resistant variety. It apparently can work well here. Cur crab apple is a crab, that flowering crab, that has apples that aren't really big, but they can be used for cider. So that's kind of the plan for that particular apple tree. We got a sea buckthorn in there to help with fertility, which is a titan again, as well as black elderberry. People here growing elderberries, they do grow well here, and they kind of fruit, you know, towards the end of September. So I think that that's going to work out to be a decent variety for here. Also in this area are hazelnuts. So in this area, actually, I've chosen a variety called Aldara, which I think they say is a cross between a Chinese and maybe an American hazelnut. And it has pretty good production, is my understanding. And paired with that is a seedling hazelnut. And I haven't decided which one to put there, but my understanding from the company I purchased it from, which has more information about the variety, say it pairs well with either a Wisconsin sourced seedling or a Saskatchewan sourced hazelnut seedling. And so the plan is that there are actually, I think, 4 different types of hazelnuts going in. Once again, service berries, they're going to act as subcanopy trees. So we're really looking at trees that will be not that big when they get to the final size. So Lee 3 and Lee 8 are what's going in here. They'll be more subcanopy to the Trader mulberry that's in there, as well as a pear tree, which is a Max Red Bartlett. Now, I think from what I recall, that's in flowering group 3 for pears, and so is Kozui, which is an Asian pear, and they can cross-pollinate. So the plan is that there's an Asian pear, there's a red Bartlett pear, and also in that area, we're looking at, once again, more gummy berries to help with building soil fertility. So we're looking at building a bit of a living windbreak thicket in that area to help shield out some wind. So buffalo berries are going to be used to kind of build that thicket in and around that area, and it may have to be propagated, by cuttings even when the time comes to get more windbreak out of it. Now in Area 5 is structured more like a trio orchard of linear trees, similar to the Miracle Farm in Quebec, which is a permaculture orchard. So there are trios of trees, and in between, I guess, each trio, there's or duo, there's actually a third tree, which is a nitrogen fixer, and in this case, those are seedling sea buckthorns. So they may produce, they may not. It depends on whether they're male or female, or whether or not I get good cross-pollination from the other ones that are going to be planted around. So there's no way really to tell that. We'll see what happens. But besides that, we have Trader mulberry trees. There are 3 of those, 2 hazelnuts, buffalo berry, and like I said, 2 of the sea buckthorns. So those will actually, work out really well in that area for building fertility and stuff. Now, there's also a couple of autumn olives up to the left of the greenhouse, and along with some of the black spruce, they will help kind of form a living windbreak to shield the area where the chickens and the compost are. So in Area 6, there's a row of black spruce and also a couple of autumn olives, which kind of form a thicket, and they'll help provide a windbreak for that trail that goes down towards the chicken coop. And in front of that, there's a Montmorency cherry, which actually does really well here, according to what I've heard from people that are growing it, and a couple of the Lee 3 and Lee 8 service berries, and once again paired with the gummy berry to help build fertility. In that area, also just to the right of our cellar, when standing looking at the north, there's actually a Lappin's cherry. Now that cherry is a semi-dwarf, I believe, or dwarf. It'll still get to kind of 12, I think 12 to 14 feet tall. So I chose an elderberry to go next to it, which is actually a variety that doesn't grow that tall. It's around 6 to 7 feet, I believe. Once again, those are paired with a gummy berry. So that's pretty much, I think, all of those areas mapped out. All right, so you can see there's been a lot of planning put into this food forest. We've spent a lot of time getting ready for it. Remember in the last episode 4, we spent a lot of time actually doing a lot of sheet mulching. So we had our hands on a lot of mulch, and the purpose of that is really to choke out things that are below. help kind of kill down whatever was there, and to basically, you know, convert our, you know, probably bacterially dominated soil into something that's no more fungal in nature by using a lot of wood chips. There's been quite a bit of thought put into what varieties to bring in. A lot of these have been chosen based on their cold hardiness zones, you know, and there have been quite a few people here that have grown some of these. So basically, that's it. So we have a fairly extensive plan, and there should be no reason why it won't work. So I'd like to thank you for joining us today. If you found this informative and useful, you know, leave comments below. You can, you know, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can reach out and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at FR_homestead, as well as on Facebook at the Homestead at Flatrock. Thanks for joining us today, and we're going to see you guys next time.